Welcome to Walkabouter's Guide to Sacket Harbour. It's a really nice place, really quaint little town in New York. There was a big battle here, Battle of 1812, really important battle. But not many know there was a third party involved. It's not just the British and the Americans. Here, you can watch it now. Most consider the War of 1812 as America's second war of independence, a conflict resulting from the scars still unhealed from the Revolutionary War. Battles were fought all the way from the Gulf of Mexico to the American-Canadian border. The Battle of Sacket Harbour might have been considered no different, nor more significant than any other campaign in the war, but it was the only battle that included a third country, the sovereign nation of Bill's Lawn. Sacket Harbour was a peaceful village nestled in the shores of Lake Ontario with a population of just 134. The people were friendly, resourceful, and even with a small naval presence in their town, they worried little of the conflicts brewing between their nation and Great Britain. Like hobbits of their time, the villagers of Sacket Harbour were fond of the simpler life and of good tilled earth. No one believed this more than William K. Bridgefeed. Like many in the town, he worked in the shipyard, but during his days off spent much of his time in his garden, caring for his flowers and building tacky lawn ornaments. Bridgefeed's lawn was considered an eyesore by some, and a national disgrace by anyone else who laid their eyes on it. William, however, gave great pride in his lawn. But the war that seemed all too distant in his non-award-winning lawn was about to change the face of it. On a warm day in May 1813, the British 104th Light Infantry landed on a small beach just 3 miles south of Sacket Harbour. When the last of the 872 troops were ashore, Lieutenant General Sir George Piggsweener ordered the immediate advancement north to meet the 1,200 American militants who had arrived in the harbor the night before. The British and the American forces engaged in a field on the eastern side of the town. The villagers continued on with their day as the battle raged around them. Most remained on their front porches, smoking pipes and talking of the latest news of preserved jams. However, the war would spread to one particular townsperson with actions that could not be ignored. William Bridgefeed was in his garden at the time of the battle when he heard a faint whizzing followed by a breaking sound. The noise he heard was that of a stray bullet that had found its way into his favorite garden gnome. The bullet had entered the left temple of the ceramic man, sending gnome head fragments to scatter all over Bill's petunias. Bridgefeed stood helplessly by his labor of love, the lawn he cherished more than life itself, as it was slightly damaged. With little resources of his own at the time, William sent urgent word to the American commander for reinforcement. May 29th, 1813. Dear Commander, I can't stress the urgency of your required assistance. The British troops have laid waste to a small section of my territory, and I fear another attack could be imminent, and everything I hold dear be lost. I humbly request the aid of no less than 50 of your bravest troops to repel the enemy forces from my front lawn. Until this day, I've only read of the glories of war and heard of the whispers of its horrors. But as I grip the broken pieces of my prized gnome, I can safely say those whispers speak a truth far louder than any cry, and those stories of glory fade from my mind. Yours truly, William K. Bridgefeed. The commander was swift with a reply.
May 29th, 1813, Sacket Harbour, New York. Dear Mr. William Bridgefeed, what? Sincerely, Brigadier General James P., Commander of the 23rd U.S. Infantry.
William's cries for support were ignored. He felt betrayed by the response of the U.S. commanders. Both nations had caused him much grief, so he felt no alliance to either of them. That afternoon, in the presence of his neighbor Jeff and a blind three-legged pig, William Bridgefeed declared his secession from the United States and that his lawn would be, from that day forward, a sovereign nation. He sent a written declaration to both armies and warned that further harassment to his nation's, quote, national treasures would result in full retaliation. There would be no reply from either commander. As the evening hours approached, the U.S. and British forces found themselves in a stalemate. The British forces held the eastern shore of the town, but had yet been able to advance to their objective, the naval shipyard. Commanders on both sides bunkered down for the night and prepared strategies for the following day. The battle on the 30th of May would have just been between those two forces if it wasn't for a lone lieutenant of the U.S. 2nd Artillery using Bill's lawn as a latrine. It was a poop heard around the world, or at least that's how William Bridgeford described it. Will would then spend the rest of the evening preparing for war. When the sun rose that fateful day, both the U.S. and British forces were met on the battlefield with 1,325 infantry troops of Bill's Lawn. William led the command of 800 burlap scarecrows, 320 clay garden gnomes, 200 pink flamingos, and 5 silhouetted lean cowboys in an attack formation between the opposing forces. While their numbers were great, their training was far from that of the nations they stood against. One scarecrow detailed the situation in a letter to his wife written the night previous.
May 29th, 1813. To my beloved wife, word has come to me that we will march into battle in the morning. I knew this day would come, and I do not halter, not even knowing these words may very well be my last. I have no lack of confidence in our cause, and regardless of the outcome, I believe our fight is just. Even though we've only just recently been assembled into existence by Commander Bridgeford, I understand that a nation of lawn ornaments to live a life without tyranny is not without sacrifice. If you are to never see me again, do not mourn me. Know that we will someday be joined together again. And I will once again enjoy the touch, your soft burlap face, and your perfectly long straw hair. Make sure the children understand what I did, and let them never forget who I was. Your loving husband, Burlap Scarecrow number 789.
For Scarecrow 789 and the rest of his men, the Battle of Sacket Harbour would be a short one. Commander Bridgeford would position his troops evenly between the opposing armies. This tactic would prove to be disastrous. When the American and British forces gave the signal to attack, both sides completely ignored the sovereign nation of Bill's Lawn and pushed through with little resistance. A journal entry of a local butcher who witnessed the battle would best describe the carnage that afternoon. But I forgot that entry at home. However, I assure you it was nasty. With defeat inevitable, William Bridgeford led one last charge. He rose straight into battle. While waving his underwear as a flag, he cried for his men to fight to the very end. That end came a few seconds later when a cannonball ripped Bill's head clean off.
And in the shadow of Sacket Mansion is a good place to end our visit to Sacket Harbour, a little bay that fought well in the War of 1812 in the year 1813. But we should be moving on with our good friend, the President. So yes, that's the history of this great harbour. Thanks for watching.
Walkabouter's Guide to Australia, or whatever we end up calling this thing.